Hi 8th grade, this is my first video for the week. We're talking about the periodic table. So in this video, that's all we're going to be talking about. So just know I did print myself off a periodic table. If you are able to do that at home, I would highly recommend it. If you can't, then use that P table that I gave you on your worksheet last week, the dynamic periodic table that you can do online, or you can search one online as well. You just need to make sure it is the updated version. All right, so moving right on here to our periodic table. So with our periodic table, you need to know how to read it. So elements, they consist of one or two letters. The first letter is always going to be capitalized, and the second letter is always going to be lowercase. So if it does have two letters, let's say iron, which is FE, that F is uppercase, that E is lowercase. If it just has one letter, like potassium, K, is just going to be an uppercase letter. Another example here. Hydrogen, capital H, helium, uppercase H, lowercase e. Columns going vertical, so up and down, those are called groups. Columns that are going horizontal, so side to side, those are periods. Horizontal groups, vertical groups, horizontal periods. And then on our periodic table, there are three major classes of groups. So these are metals, nonmetals, and metalloids. So just know we're not talking about if they're going to be like a solid, liquid, or gas. It's going to be more so if they're metal, nonmetal, or metalloid. So here's our periodic table of elements. So remember, going horizontal and vertical. Horizontal is periods, so like hydrogen, helium, lithium, beryllium, the next one, next, so on. And then going up and down, vertical, those are groups. So from hydrogen down to francium, beryllium down to radium, those are groups. Okay, so on our periodic table, like I said, we're going to talk about metals, nonmetals, and metalloids. So on the periodic table, almost all of the elements are metals. And properties of metals include they can conduct electricity, they have very high melting points except for mercury. Mercury can actually just melt in your hand. They are good conductors of heat, and they are usually shiny. They are ductile, which means that they can be pulled into a very thin wire. And they are also malleable, which means they can be formed into thin sheets. For our nonmetals, these are all of the nonmetals on the periodic table. There's not that many of them compared to the metals. So our nonmetals, they are the second largest class on our periodic table. Their properties include they have a low boiling point, they are poor conductors of heat electricity, so the opposite of metals. They are dull, they are brittle, they can easily crack and crumble. That's it. And then our last class on the periodic table is our metalloids. Now on our periodic table, they are the smallest class, and that's because there are only 7 metalloids. So our metalloids are antimony, tellurium, polonium, boron, silicon, germanium, and arsenic. So where you can find our metalloids, they fall between our metals and nonmetals. Their properties include they can act like either a metal or a nonmetal. They are semiconductors, so they can conduct electricity, but only at high temperatures. They are shiny like metals, but they are brittle like nonmetals. And these are solids at room temperature. And so on our periodic table, when you are trying to figure out where the metalloids fall exactly, there is this thing called a stair step, and along that stair step is our metalloids. You might also hear it be called a staircase or a zigzag. So here's our periodic table, and there's that stair step here, so goes down like this. And the elements that fall along it, aside from aluminum, are metalloids. So we have boron, silicon, germanium, arsenic, antimony, tellurium. I forgot to include polonium here. And that stair step also separates our metals from nonmetals. So you already see up here, anything to the right of the stair step are nonmetals, except for hydrogen over here. Hydrogen is also a nonmetal. And then anything to the left are metals, again, except for hydrogen. So nonmetals are to the right, metals are to the left, and along the staircase is our metalloids. So going right into it, we're going to talk about each group individually and some properties of them. So our group 1 is called the alkali metals. So with our metals, hydrogen is a nonmetal, but it's still in that group. The alkali metals start from lithium, Li, down to francium, Fr. These are very, very reactive. They are the most reactive out of the entire periodic table, and we're actually going to figure out why in our upcoming lessons here. And as you go further down in the group, so lithium in this group is the least reactive, and francium is the most reactive. So it goes from less reactive to more reactive as you go down that group. With these elements, they are only found combined with other elements in nature because of how reactive they are. Like, these elements are so reactive that they react with water. And their properties, they are solids at room temperature. They can float on water. They are soft, so they can be cut with a knife. And I do have a video here of reaction explosions of alkali metals with water. I am just going to include these videos along with this video on my weekly schedule, because if we watch it here, it's just going to make this video longer. So if you are interested, you can watch on your own. Group 2, this is our alkaline earth metals. So these metals, they are silver or gray in color. They are soft and light in weight, but not as much as alkali metals. They are very reactive, and they are combined with other elements in nature. So kind of like our first group, but these ones are not as reactive as our first group, so just keep that in mind. And again, the further you go down into this group, the more reactive the elements get. So beryllium is the least reactive, down to radium, which is the most reactive in this group. Again, another video. If you want to watch it, you can on your own time. Alright, so this one expands from group 3 to 12, and it also includes the elements at the bottom of the periodic table. And these are called our transition metals. So our transition metals make up over half of the elements on the periodic table. The elements below the table are included. These are the lanthanides, that's that La right there. These are very reactive for our transition metals, and our actinides are radioactive. And if you're wondering, well, why aren't they on the periodic table? Why are they below it? Well, if they were actually on our periodic table would be super long. So that's why they just decided to put them at the bottom. And our properties of transition metals, they are very good at conducting heat and electricity. They are malleable, so remember they can be formed into thin sheets. They have very high melting and boiling points. They are solids at room temperature. And they are very hard and heavy. And along with that, they're also shiny and colorful. So here are some different elements down there. So, like I said, there's our lanthanides, and there's our actinides. Alright, these next few groups, they are going to be named after the element that first shows up in that group. So group 13, that is also just called the boron group, because boron is the first element that appears in that group. So, in this group, this is where we start to see the metalloids. So our metalloid is boron. Our metals go from aluminum to gallium, indium, thallium, and nihonium. And they are reactive and solid at room temperature. Group 14 is our carbon group, again named after carbon, the first element there. This is where we start to see our nonmetals as well. So nonmetals, that's carbon. Our metalloids, that is silicon and germanium. Our metals are tin, lead, and flerovium. These ones, they're not very reactive, and they're also solids at room temperature. Alright, our next one is our nonmetals. Group 15, our nitrogen group. So again, named after nitrogen, the first element there. We have nonmetals, nitrogen, and phosphorus. Our metalloids, which is arsenic and antimony. And then our metals are bismuth and also muscovium. So the ones that aren't listed here, those are the newer elements on the periodic table. The periodic table got updated in 2018. So that's why I said when you are looking one up online, make sure it's the updated one and doesn't have the unknowns there at the bottom. And these ones also vary in reactivity. And they are all solids except for nitrogen. Group 16, oxygen group. This is our last group that's named after the first element that appears in that group. So our nonmetals, oxygen, sulfur, and selenium. Our metalloids, tellurium, and it should be polonium as well. These are very reactive, and they're solids at room temperature except for oxygen. With group 17, this is called the halogens, so going back to its own unique name. So our halogens, they are very reactive, and they are non-metals, all of them. So this one is a bit different, like our alkali and alkaline earth metals. Those were very reactive, not as reactive at the top and got very reactive as you went down. These ones are the opposite. So fluorine is the most reactive in this group, and as you go down the group, they get less reactive. These ones can be solids, liquids, or gases at room temperature. It just depends on which element it is. And these ones also vary in color. So another video to watch if you want to. And then our last group on the periodic table, this is called our noble gases. So these ones, they are non-reactive at all, and you will find out why they are non-reactive in later videos. They are non-metallic, they are colorless and odorless, and they have low boiling points. So with our noble gases, you can just think of them like, oh, they are too noble to interact with other things or be whatever. They are too noble to do so. So that's it for our periodic table. I know it's a lot of information. I will also include this slideshow along with this video in case you missed something, and also so you can watch those videos on your own time. Alright, my next video is going to be giving you instructions over a worksheet that I'm going to have you do over the periodic table. Alright, see you next video, guys.